GLC is now offering a free audio stream of our 24/7 broadcast that we're calling GLC Radio, an online radio station that broadcasts our round-the-clock audio stream on a variety of platforms. GLC Radio gives you the ability to listen to GLC virtually anywhere, through your home or office computer, or on the go with a mobile device. You can access GLC Radio through our website or by searching for God's Learning Channel through iTunes Internet Radio, TuneInRadio.com, or on Shoutcast.com. Explore various GLC Radio-enabled mobile apps by visiting our website at glc.us.com/listen/GLC Radio. GLC Radio, your free connection to GLC anywhere, anytime.
Well, praise God, and welcome to the update.
It's Monday.
Yeah,
And,
new week.
What a
the last
world
week.
we're living in.
It is the last week of January.
Okay, where are we going to
Oh.
start before I start thinking about it?
Please don't. Well, you have a letter if you want to talk about
You want to
that.
start at the letter?
Sure, why not?
Okay, it says, special note to Amy. Dearest Amy, see, that's not to me. I appreciate your approach to the Bible. You teach me and explain things very well. I am frustrated along with you about this nation's Christians whose teachings and understandings of the Bible is so off track. Blessings to you for standing up for the truth. I love your firmness to your viewers. People need that. I look forward to meeting all of you next time I come to Midland, and I want my picture taken with my brothers and sisters in Yeshua, Amy, Al, and Tommy. Thank you, and God bless you, my living room GLC family, for over 15 years. Shalom, Vicky from Abilene.
Thank you, Vicki. Wow, that was way sweet.
It
was.
is.
You know, I have been doing so much thinking about this love thing since Steve Chermet was here last week.
Oh, boy.
And I tell you, the Lord is just dropping more and more and more in my heart. It's just overwhelming to me, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get a chance to visit with you all about that in the very near future.
Good.
Because it's like, we all know about 1 Corinthians 13 and the love thing.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my goodness, it's so much more important than we think it is.
I have
Yes.
a suggestion how that'd be, because I think it'd be a good program. Let your mother host you, and you be the guest.
I don't know
She
if the
doesn't need a
viewers,
host.
if the viewers could stand both Mom and I on our soapboxes, as our
either.
family calls it. You get on your soapbox.
As you notice, I left myself out of vintage. Okay,
That
let's
might
go
be
to
fun, though.
what else we got.
Well, the devotional kind of goes along with the love message today. It's called Righteous Judgment, and this is by Pastor Frangipane. In his various writings and public speaking, Francis has urged the born-again church to resist the trends of self-righteous anger and bitter cynicism that exist in our world.
Yep.
Instead, let us seek to possess the higher thoughts of Christ, according to Isaiah 55:9. In truth, our calling is to serve God as ambassadors of Christ, according to Ephesians 6:20. A true ambassador is not only pledged to represent his or her leader, the ambassador is one who knows what that leader actually thinks and what he would say. The ambassador receives regular communication from that leader and is current on his leader's short-term and long-term goals. Should the ambassador be ignorant of the ruler's view, he's trained to not offer his own opinion. He's to wait until he hears from the one he represents. The world doesn't want to know what we think. There are some 7 billion opinions in the world today.
Most of them right here.
What the nations need is not to hear our opinion, but to hear the one we represent, our King, Lord Jesus Christ. He has also endeavored to put a roadblock in front of false discernment. That's Pastor Frangipane. we must avoid the self-righteous religious approach of the Pharisees.
Yep.
When Francis urges people not to be judgmental, he's not saying don't discern. Spiritual discernment is an art form, while judging by outer appearance is an instinct of the flesh. Pastor Frangipane is saying we must learn how to wait, listen, and in meekness discern the higher way of Christ. Yet inevitably there are still questions. What about the Lord's admonition calling us to not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment? John 7:24. What is righteous judgment? In discussing this with others, Francis noticed that the words righteous and judgment seem to be all that some see in the verse. However, the first part of the verse explains at least partially the second half. Righteous judgment is that which is not according to appearance. Righteous judgment comes from another source, that which is higher than the instincts of the flesh. You see, there's a difference between discerning a need that you are determined to pray for, and in contrast, simply finding fault, which often degrades into gossip and slander. God does not call a person into a ministry of judging others just because one has always been fearless to tell it as it is. Fault-finding is not a gift of the Spirit. If your judgment is truly from God, it will not be an isolated gift. You will also have humility from God, love, and lowliness of mind as well. Righteous judgment proves itself genuine by the virtue that support and present it. All the virtues of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, gentleness, and so forth, should be functionally evident in your character. If so, you will have been known to be gentle, loving, lowly of mind, and wise. And when you bring a righteous judgment, your character affirms that your judgment is not an emotional reaction, but you come as one sent from God. Like Christ, you are typically full of grace and truth. You speak as an individual who is seriously concerned with bettering the life of others. As John wrote, by this, love is perfected with us, so that we may have confidence in the day of judgment. Because as he is, so also are we in this world. And that comes from 1 John 4:17. Yes, the day of judgment is coming. Our goal should be that love be perfected in us. In the seasons of judgment, we're called to a life of perfect love. For as he is, so also are we in this world. The preceding excerpt was adapted from the book Spiritual Discernment and the Mind of Christ by Pastor Frangipane.
You know, we might just have to get that book in our bookstore if we don't have it.
He has some awesome books.
That was so excellent.
Yeah, well, thank you.
It was so excellent. You're pretty good at choosing those.
Yeah, I get good stuff in my inbox.
Okay, so it's the one time we might be able to be thankful for email.
Yeah, really.
There was so much going on. I haven't even looked at the news that you pulled together, so I'm glancing over this list. And I don't see this listed here, so I'm just going to mention it. We had several bomb threats over the weekend on airplanes. There was, on Saturday, I believe it was, a Southwest flight flying into Atlanta and a Delta flight flying into Atlanta.
Really?
And then last night I saw another bomb threat that had been directed at SeaTac up in Washington, Seattle, Tacoma. And I'm like, well, the guy who did the one on Atlanta, and those two planes were both escorted by jet fighter planes once that happened. It was someone on Twitter who was announcing this bomb threat. They'll find him. It won't be pretty. But
Have to find him quick.
anyway, so much going
Very
on.
soon.
All right, it looks like this first one comes from Dr. Chaplain Gordon James Klingenschmidt. Ta-da! The UN Security Council voted 8-2 to seize Jerusalem from Israel for the Palestinians. But the vote fell just short of the 9-1 vote count required to actually seize Jerusalem. The United Nations Security Council rejected a Palestinian resolution demanding Israel withdraw from disputed territories within 3 years, reports Fox News. The resolution failed to get the minimum 9 yes votes in the Security Council. It received 8 yes votes, 2 no votes, including 1 from the United States, and 5 abstentions. The defeated resolution would have affirmed the urgent need to achieve a just, lasting, and comprehensive peaceful solution to the Palestinian and Israeli conflict within 12 months and set a December 31st, 2017 deadline for Israel's so-called occupation of Jerusalem to end. It also called for an independent state of Palestine to be established within the 1967 Mideast borders before Israel captured the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem, and demanded a just solution to all other outstanding issues, including Palestinian refugees, prisoners in Israeli jails, and water.
The United States, Israel's closest ally, reiterated its opposition to the draft resolution earlier Tuesday. It had insisted on a negotiated peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians, not an imposed one. If America doesn't stand with Israel, God won't stand with us. The Palestinian Authority is demanding the United Nations recognize them as a new nation, an independent state, giving the Obama administration a tough choice. Jordan has submitted a draft resolution on ending Israel's God-given ownership of Palestinian lands captured in 1967 to the UN Security Council for a possible vote, reports Al Jazeera. The resolution wants Israeli security forces withdrawn no later than the end of 2017. Jordan submitted the resolution on behalf of the Palestinians, since Palestine is an observer to the UN and not a full member state. Only member states can present a resolution to the Security Council.
Okay, before I continue, I'm going to point out something. It was Jordan that submitted that.
Yeah.
Well, way back in 1948, when all of the land was divided by Britain, who owned everything, they created, besides Israel, this country called Transjordan. It was meant for the Palestinian people. Today, you know that country as simply Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
So we continue. The draft resolution states that a negotiated solution should be based on several parameters, including the 67 borders, security agreements, and Jerusalem as the shared capital of the two states, which fulfills the legitimate aspirations of both parties and protects freedom of worship. The text also calls upon both parties to abstain from any unilateral and illegal actions, including settlement activities that could undermine the viability of a two-state solution. The U.S., Israel's closest ally, has declined to say whether it would use its veto power on the Palestinian resolution. Dr. Chapp's comment, President Obama waffles while the Palestinians demand Jerusalem, total surrender by Israel, no Israeli security forces, a return to pre-67 borders, and world recognition of their independent status as an equal state inside Israel's borders. No wonder Israel opposes this. And you know what? America should too.
As you've probably heard, the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, has voted to dissolve itself and hold early elections on March 17th. The parliament's vote of 93 to nothing formalized a decision to move forward an election that had not been expected until 2017 in the aftermath of Netanyahu's December 2 firing of Yair Lapid as finance minister and Tzipi Livni as justice minister. Most opinion polls show Netanyahu being re-elected as prime minister, with many Israelis backing his tough stance on the conflict with the Palestinians and other security issues. Netanyahu launched his re-election campaign on Monday with a promise to cancel value-added tax on basic foods at a business conference in Tel Aviv.
Well, Dr. Chaps comments this: the Israeli people are becoming more conservative, more Jewish, and demanding more security, dragging Netanyahu further to the right. The Palestinian people are becoming more extremist, supporting more terrorists, demanding more violence, and total secession from Israeli territory, dragging Abbas further to the left. This will soon result in war if the two parties cannot find common ground. God says, I will enter into judgment with them there on behalf of my people and my inheritance, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and they have divided up my land. That's Joel 3:2. You were wanting to say something, Mr. Cooper?
Well, I was thinking, go back to the 67 borders, right? That's what they want?
Yeah,
Well, that's Jordan would take that over,
that's right.
not Palestine.
But that's the point I was trying to
Yeah.
make. There are many, many, many Palestinians living in Jordan because Jordan was the country that was designated for the Palestinian people.
Well, when Arafat took everybody and said, okay, we're going to go to Jordan, I forget how many thousands of the Palestinians were killed by the Jordanians. It was a messy battle. At
Well,
least
you know
10,000.
something that's really interesting? Israel hasn't gone to war. It's just like this Gaza thing that happened over the summer where they're getting thousands of rockets fired in on them, like they're supposed to just sit there and take it. Well, every war that I'm aware of that they've been in, and there have been a lot since 1948, it's because they were attacked.
That's right.
And this one where they got back the east side of Jerusalem, including the Temple Mount, they didn't start that.
Nope.
No, they
But
didn't.
if they get the territory because they're defending themselves, then somehow they're supposed to return it. It's like, I don't know, but it just doesn't make much sense to me. I don't know other countries that are required to do that.
I don't
I
think
wrote a
any of
whole
them are.
chapter in my book on that.
In your
fiasco.
propaganda book?
Yep.
Really? One of these days, I might have time to read your propaganda book.
Well, you know, there's been a lot of brouhaha about Netanyahu being invited by Boehner to come speak to the House.
Or to the Congress.
And they said, well, he didn't ask the White House. Well, this article has something different to say about that. And this comes from the Times of Israel staff. The Speaker of House, John Boehner, said Sunday night that he informed President Barack Obama that he had asked Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to speak before Congress hours before the invite was made public. Boehner and Netanyahu were said to have agreed that the Israeli Prime Minister would speak in Washington on March 3rd without consulting the administration, the customary policy on such things. This gave rise to anger in Washington and to criticism in the media. Asked about the White House's statements that had been blindsided by the plan, Boehner told CBS's 60 Minutes, "We gave them a heads up that morning." He defended this decision to invite Netanyahu to speak to Congress about his position on Iran's nuclear program, a stance considerably more hawkish than that of the Obama administration. There's nobody in the world who can talk about the threat of radical terrorism. Nobody can talk about the threat the Iranians pose, not just to the Middle East and to Israel, but to the entire world, better than Benjamin Netanyahu, he said. Boehner went on to say he did not believe Obama was giving that threat the attention it deserved. The president didn't spend but a few seconds in his State of the Union address last week talking about the threat, the terrorist threat that we as Americans face, Boehner said. This problem is growing all over the world. The president is trying to act as though it's not there, but it is there, and it's going to be a threat to our homeland if we don't address it in a bigger way.
Amen.
Well, Netanyahu is expected to urge U.S. lawmakers to ready new sanctions on Iran in order to force it to comply with international demands to curb its nuclear program, a move Obama strongly opposes and has vowed to veto. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell told 60 Minutes he did not agree with Obama's insistence that new sanctions at this sensitive time would cause negotiations with Tehran to break down. Under the proposal, we're considering those enhanced sanctions would only occur if a deal is not reached, he said. In other words, it further incentivizes the Iranians to reach an agreement because they know things could get considerably worse if they do not. On Sunday, Israel's ambassador to the U.S., Ron Dermer, also defended Netanyahu's planned speech, saying it was the prime minister's sacred duty to present his stance on Iran.
And speaking at an Israel Bonds event in Florida, Israel's ambassador to Washington, Ron Dermer, former senior advisor to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, charged that the nuclear agreement being discussed between the P5+1 and Tehran could endanger the very existence of the State of Israel by leaving Iran as a nuclear threshold state. The six world powers, Britain, China, France, Russia, and the United States and Germany, are working with Iran to finalize an agreement that would curb Tehran's nuclear program, which the West believes is intended to build atomic weapons, a charge the Islamic Republic denies. 2 earlier deadlines passed without the final deal, and a third deadline is looming on July 1st. Dermer said Netanyahu's visit was intended for one purpose: to speak up while there is still time to speak up. To speak up when there is still time to make a difference.
Netanyahu's upcoming speech sparked a public row between his government and Obama's administration. The administration has been at odds with Netanyahu for years over international efforts to reach an agreement on Iran's nuclear program, with Israel expressing skepticism over emerging terms that would allow Tehran to retain some uranium enrichment capacity. Amid growing criticism in the U.S. and in Israel of Netanyahu's move, including by Israel's former U.S. envoy Michael Oren, who called on the prime minister to cancel the speech, Dermer said the visit was, quote, not intended to show any disrespect for President Obama, nor was it intended to wade into your political debate. Earlier Sunday, White House Chief of Staff Dennis McDonough appeared to downplay the tensions between the White House and the Prime Minister, insisting that the U.S. relationship with Israel was many-faceted, deep, and abiding. McDonough deferred questions about comments attributed to an American official in Friday's edition of Haaretz Daily to the effect that Netanyahu spat in our face publicly, and that's no way to behave. An unnamed official warned that Netanyahu ought to remember that President Obama has 1.5 years left to his presidency and that there will be a price. Wow, what a threat.
That sounds like a unveiled threat.
I understand the thing. They're trying to say that with Netanyahu coming here and speaking about this just before elections in Israel, it somehow will affect the elections in Israel. But I look at this and I go, okay, well, this is the time that Congress has asked him to come speak and to fill them in on what he knows, because it's a very critical time.
Yes, it is.
He can't help the fact that the elections are coming up. And furthermore, it's who else? Just like that article said, who else can better speak?
That's right.
Because he has been in that office for some time, and trust me, he knows a lot of things that we don't know, and we know it's not a good situation.
That's right.
So, there you are.
Yeah. Well, here's another article from Times of Israel staff. Iran has threatened to attack Israel from the West Bank in retaliation for an alleged Israeli airstrike in Syria on Sunday, January 18th, that left 12 Iranian and Hezbollah operatives dead. The airstrike has been attributed to Israel, and though Jerusalem has not officially confirmed it, anonymous government sources have admitted as such. Deputy head of Iranian's Revolutionary Guard, Lieutenant General Hossein Salami, vowed Saturday to open new fronts against Israel and change the balance of power. In an excerpt of an interview with Salami, the IRGC's number 2 said that Iran and Hezbollah would provide a special reprisal to the strike, according to the Tasnim news agency, adding that opening a new front in the West Bank was in the works.
Great. Opening up a new front across the West Bank, which is a major section of our dear Palestine, will be certainly on the agenda, and this is part of a new reality that will gradually emerge, Salami said in the interview with Iran's Arabic language news channel Al Alam. Iran and Hezbollah have issued a series of threats since the strike earlier this week, warning of a crushing response and destructive thunderbolts. The dead included an Iranian general and senior Hezbollah commanders, Muhammad Isa and Jihad Hugnayeh, son of slain terror mastermind Imad Mugnayeh.
There have been conflicting reports as to whether Israel knew that Iranian General Mohammed al-Adadi was in the convoy. On Friday, Channel 10 reported that Israel had sent calming messages to Iran and Hezbollah via Moscow after the strike, clarifying that it was uninterested in an escalating conflict with Tehran or the Lebanese terror group. According to the report, Israeli officials told Moscow that Israel viewed the strike as an act of self-defense and that Hezbollah had forced Israel's hand by building an offensive infrastructure on its border. Jerusalem stressed it did not want the situation to deteriorate into a regional conflict. Russian leaders conveyed this message to Beirut and Tehran. A report on Channel 2 Friday said the strike targeted the leaders of the substantial new Hezbollah terror hierarchy that was set to attempt kidnappings, rocket attacks, and other assaults on military and civilian targets in northern Israel.
The new terror unit involved Mugnayeh, who was coordinating with the commander of the Quds Force of Iran's Revolutionary Guards, Qasem Soleimani, the Channel 2 report said. There was no suggestion in the report that Soleimani, a key figure in supporting Syrian President Bashar Assad and Hezbollah, was in the area at the time. The terrorist hierarchy included recruitment and intelligence departments and was set to begin operations targeting Israel from the Syrian Golan, including kidnappings, firing rockets and mortar shells, and using anti-tank weapons against Israeli residential areas. The unit was set up with Iranian sponsorship, the report said. Israel's targeting of some of its members underlined that a red line was crossed that Israel would not tolerate. The TV report said Israel was braced for a response. That response targeted Israeli civilians, however. Subsequent Israeli retaliation would endanger the Assad regime in Syria, Channel 2's military commentator Roni Daniel said. He did not state a source for that assertion.
Wow.
So they're building up on the border of Israel and expecting Israel to just sit there and do nothing.
Mm-hmm. They're in the north, and now they're... Oh, and I saw an article a while ago that I had not seen before, that ISIS is in Gaza executing some of Hamas's leaders and getting ready to strike again from Gaza.
Did you know they
Really?
furnished Hamas 10,000 rockets that were smuggled in, of which they fired at 2,400 this summer? 10,000.
Well, their rockets have not been real effective, but Hezbollah on the northern border, that's a different story. And then Iran getting involved, and of course they're involved with Hezbollah. But, oh my goodness.
Just a quick note on a couple of things. I don't know if it's happened yet, but they were, last week, on Thursday, they were about to clear that police officer in Missouri from any wrongdoing.
They have.
But at the same time, the police released a surveillance video that officials say shows more than 180 people suspected of looting after the federal grand jury's decision not to indict him. They've released that video. Okay, so let's just go crazy because we can. Hey, you don't want to miss Light of the Southwest tonight. It's a program I recorded with Jean-Claude Chelvam, and he was wearing his little French boots.
All right. We'll check it out and see. And meanwhile, don't forget to pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Amen.
Pray for Benjamin Netanyahu's wisdom. We love you. We'll see you next time.